rocking the baby to sleep. It's what homicidal prisoners do to pedophiles. They treat them nicely. They pretend to be their friends. They say nice things to them for days, weeks, months, until they get them alone. Two mobsters did that in Louisiana on their high security floor, until they got the sex offender in another cell. They made nice with him until he agreed to go to the prison gym. Then they grabbed him and stomped on his face until the room ran with his blood. He died a slow, desperate death alone with these two killers. They had rocked their baby to sleep. That was the fate of Jeffrey Epstein and most of the other prisoners in his wing at the MCC, Metropolitan Correctional Center in downtown New York, told him that. And today on Crime Waves, for the very first time ever, we have a high-level drug trafficker, a major criminal who is in the MCC at the same time as Epstein, and he talks about the conditions in the prison and his views on Epstein's death.
It's called a hole for a reason. It's probably the worst place you could be at if you're living, besides literally like 6 feet underground, I guess, when you're dead. You're separated from all the general population. The reason for me being there was for my safety. You know, I was a huge drug trafficker and I became a cooperator with the federal government, and for my safety, they put me in the SHU. And you're locked down 23 hours a day. They say 23 hours a day. Really, some days you're locked down 24 hours a day. You get 3 hours a week of rec time. That might include your showers. So you kind of get a choice. You want to shower, you want to rec.
Rec being working out or just seeing
right,
the outdoors.
Yeah, recreation. They did whatever they wanted. And they would come at 3 in the morning. Not rec or shower. And you're like, it's 3 in the morning. So most inmates would skip it. You know, it's 3 in the morning. Like, right. You're not expecting that early morning
middle of the
wake
night.
up.
Right.
Yeah, and so
and
it
Juan,
could get
what,
that bad.
What were the conditions like? Were there rats? Were there cockroaches?
Oh, there's rats. Yeah, it's dirty. You know, I remember at that time they still had regular mattresses filled. They've been pissed on and blood on them, and people were sick on them, and it's pretty disgusting. You know, you got a steel toilet. You know, you have the bare essentials, meaning you'll get some sheets, you get pillowcase, you're covered, you get your jumpsuit, which is what we would have to do because it would get cold in the winter. We try to hide extra pairs of socks.
And that's it. So when I see a photo of Jeffrey Epstein's cell with medical equipment, with wires, with all kinds of bottles of pills, with reading materials, that wasn't a normal circumstance for you guys.
I can't say that was common. Like if he had a medical condition, I could say maybe they would allow those, like sleep apnea or something, right, like a breathing machine or something like that. Then they can't deny him that access, or a medication that he might get.
No, I've been reading some of the reports from the SHU, and it said the showers used to break down, and people, or the toilets used to break down. And sometimes people.
Oh, yeah. So that's a common thing. So people are in the SHU, and man, they seek attention. So their way of getting attention, or they don't get their phone call. Someone forgot their bread on the meal cart. So they'll flood the tier. They'll stuff the T-shirts and stuff into the toilet, and they'll start flushing away. And it'll literally create 6 inches of water if they let it in the units. And, you know, when you're in one of the cells like that, you're like, come on, man, don't do that right now. I feel like once you've been there long enough, it's a cry for help. You know, it's a cry for something, like, and you don't want to deal with it, but they do it. Of course, they'll take feces and throw it at the walls and throw it everywhere, essentially, you know, and it's pretty disgusting. And
how many cockroaches are there?
There's cockroaches everywhere. The food is the worst thing you could possibly be served, I guess. It gets to the point, I mean, remember, for me, being in the SHU, and inmates know that I'm a cooperator, everyone on that floor has some kind of reason to be down there. For Epstein, I mean, he had a big, you know, sexual, you know, assault charges, and all these things came to light, which would be a pedophile. He'd be labeled as a pedophile. And the inmates who bring the food down are going to spit on it. put feces on it, and you're kind of always wondering, like, is this clean? You don't expect the correctional officer to be on your side. You know, they're human. They have their and crooked as well. So I always used to wonder, every time you look at the tray, you're looking for anything suspicious before you eat it.
How professional were the guards in the MCC?
Oh, they're not professional. We're talking about these are regular people. Like, no, I don't think people go to college to be a correctional officer. You know, you don't have the best of the best. And I'm not talking about everyone. There's a lot of nice people, a lot of gentlemen who really, you know, take their job seriously.
At the MCC.
But for the most part, especially the SAG, they'll do little things, and you think like, why are they doing this? They're lazy. You know, what is it? And they've gotten, I think that after some time, they just grow numb to the inmates there. They're like dogs in cages. You know, on one hand, you understand that there's people that throw feces at you and piss. And then the other hand, you're like, how they're supposed to, you know, divide that or kind of see you for who you are. I don't think they see that. Everyone's just a number, and they're just there to do their, you know, 8 hours and go home.
One inmate, former inmate that I talked to, described it, everything happening there is a money play. That a lot of the MCC guards were just like, you paid them a lot of money, they'd get you a coffee.
I mean, yes, corruption is everywhere in the prison system, and I've seen it. I've seen, you know, inmates get special treatment and literally get whatever they wanted. You know, at the right place, you can have sex, you can have cell phone, you can have drugs. You know, you do your search, people get caught with guns in the prison. Like, how do you sneak a gun into a prison? So anything's possible with you know, with the right amount of money and the right person, I guess.
And another guy told me that at one point the certainly in his section of the SHU, that they would occasionally leave the doors open and the prisoners would come in and out. Did you ever see that?
I never seen that. I mean, I've seen and heard stories like that, but for the most part, no, I never seen it myself.
Okay.
And you know, I've seen stories where they took hold of the SAG unit by force, took the keys, opened doors. That was like one of my nightmares, to think that, you know, inmate would get away and take those keys, and next you know, he's opening all these doors, and now
you would have been killed.
Yeah, now I'm sitting here thinking someone's gonna kill me, and it's happened before. It's loud all day. Towards the night, you still have some people talking loud, and it could drive you crazy where you want to just tell everyone, hey man, could you shut up for a couple minutes? Or you have them singing or rapping or fighting or taunting you. Me as a cooperator, they'll taunt us, say, hey, you know, people have families, why are you doing that? You snitch, you rat, a pedophile. Oh, that could be even worse. And
what would they say?
The mental breakdown of what they tell them, what's waiting for them in a prison is torturing when they tell you what's going to happen to you.
What would they say?
Oh man, they say they're going to kill them, rape them, you know, stick a knife up their butt, and all these things, these horrific things. Imagine just all day and night, a mental torture of. It really makes you think, wow, I'm going to go to this prison and this is what's going to happen to me. You know, for my situation, I didn't have that extreme worry about going to a mainline prison and someone attacking me, because I knew I wasn't going to be in a mainline prison.
Because you cooperated with such high level cases and stuff.
I was a special status. Yes.
Right. I read reports that there were MCC guards that had murdered people. Certainly one MCC guard was convicted of rape. Another one was convicted of serial sexual assault. There were cell phones in there. There was an organized system of drug distribution by the guards. 5 or 6 of them were working together. In fact, one of them was even writing letters of recommendation for inmates in the MCC. Had testified before a judge saying that this particular one was good. There were gangbangers holding FaceTime concerts on their cell phone, what they had in the SHU. Does any of that surprise you?
Not at all. Like I said, corruption. And when you encounter these people, these correctional officers, you really realize that you wouldn't, if we all had the same clothes on, you wouldn't be able to tell who's who. I've seen inmates behave with good morals and character. I've seen correctional officers behave like thugs. They're the first ones to put you out there like, hey, they'll go back and tell the unit, hey, this guy back there, he's no good. He's he's a cooperator or he's a pedophile.
So let's talk specifically about Epstein, America's most famous, most rich inmate, stuck in the middle of MCC, there for 5 weeks, and August 9th, 10th, dead. What's your opinion, Juan? Suicide or murder?
My personal opinion is that it's a complete mental breakdown when you're in that circumstances. And I came from a very, good life.
Hang on, you'd been kidnapped twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once by corrupt cops,
yes,
and the other one by Mexican drug dealers.
Yeah, I've been through the worst, and I've had I lived in paradise for a while. Nothing compared to what Epstein had. He had jets and islands, but when you're taken from that into that shoe, into the hole, it feels like you're living through hell. And the mental torture of other inmates telling you what's going to happen to you, and the fear of going to a prison, all those things really could break you down mentally. After something like that happens, after they find a body or there's a fight, the normal routine of the BOP would be everyone gets locked down and they do a body check. Everyone gets checked for marks on their hands, scratches on their face, stripped down. Let me see. They're looking for evidence that there was a fight.
Interesting, because that did not happen. That did not happen in the MCC. Very interesting. So you're saying that it was normally an altercation, some kind of thing happening, that they would lock everyone down and you'd come looking for physical evidence in other people's cells. And I know that did not happen.
Yeah. So if someone's sitting there stabbed or beat up and bruised, they're looking for evidence, looking for blood, they're looking for scratches, they're looking for your fist to be, bruised. And, they'll go door by door. You see, strip. And you're stripping, turn around, you're showing them your, everything. Like they're overlooking your whole body for any kind of evidence that you're involved in the altercation. So that for me to think that a guy like Epstein didn't fight back at all, he just stood there and let them come and grab him, and didn't to being suffocated or choked out and not fight, not try to save yourself. I don't see that. But then again, anything can happen. I just don't see that it would be just one person going to his cell and doing it. Multiple people, holding him down, maybe, but that the BOP didn't act out and check for those signs of that's shocking.
Yeah, no, nothing, absolutely nothing. Here, let me give you another incident and tell me what you think of that. The night that Epstein, August 9th, Friday, August the 9th, he comes back from meeting with his lawyers. He's escorted back into the SHU, and then he says, can I make a phone call? And they give him the phone, and he's allowed to make a phone call for 17 minutes inside the shower, unmonitored. How usual is that?
And that's super rare. First of all, you don't get a call just upon your request. When I first went in, I believe you received a call a month. So you get one call a month and they're going to write it down. And it has to be approved, meaning you don't have no sanctions. There's nothing, that's going to prevent you from using that to getting that phone call. And even with that one call a month, the correctional officers suck at bringing that phone. It's just the hardest thing in the world to get them just to bring the phone. And the normal process where they'll slide a phone and put it in front of the door and open the food slot, and you grab the phone and cough right from your cell. No, that's the only place you could cough from. Now, there is instances where a case manager, you come and say, hey, man, I got a letter from my family. Right. I really need to make a call.
That's not the case. He says, I want a phone call, and one of the CEOs takes a phone and doesn't supervise him, allows him to phone Bilo Russia.
Yes, that's incredible to me.
How unusual was it that much of the paperwork, and this is all on public record, I've read thousands of pages of these documents, but much of the documentation at the MCC was utterly fraudulent, that they weren't doing cell counts. They weren't doing the 4 o'clock, the 10 o'clock, the midnight, the 3, the 5 counts. How usual was that they were not doing those?
That was the norm.
That was the
They
norm.
that was the norm. I mean, and even when they do those stand-up counts, which is the whole BOP is gonna be
Right.
counted, they walk by yourself. They don't even look in it.
So,
They,
sorry, you're
they
saying the norm was that they didn't do those counts
I
and they just
mean,
faked the paperwork.
the main counts, even for those
Right.
main counts, they're
Yep.
supposed to do walk-arounds every 30 minutes, or
Right.
if I'm correct, it was every 30 minutes or every hour, but I think it was every 30 minutes. And they wouldn't do those walk-arounds every 30 minutes. But during those counts, which is stand-up count, they would just literally walk by. Two officers are doing count, and they're gonna at the end of when they're done with that floor, they're gonna compare and say, how many you have? 23? Yes, I got 23. Okay, let's go. And they wouldn't really even look in your cell to see if you're there. They just walk by. So that was norm. After this happened with Epstein, every 15-minute count, and they were walking. Now they're walking. Now they're paying attention. That's how much of an impact he had when that happened to him. Now
It's a
they're
bit
like,
late, isn't
everyone,
it? They've allowed the
get your
most famous
yeah,
inmate in America to be
yeah,
killed or suicided,
yes.
and then
Stand. It was on your feet, stand up count. Because most of the time you're in the shoe, you're not gonna get off your bed. You're laying right here. I didn't go nowhere. I've been stuck in this cell for the last 6 months. But after that, they were like, everyone get off your bunk and stand up count.
the video system, 50% of the cameras were down, were not working in the MCC. And weirdly, they looked as if they were, but they weren't recording. How likely, and again, you don't know the specific circumstances, but how likely would it be that some corrupt correctional officer might mention that to one of the prisoners?
Oh, that's super likely. I mean, if they're bringing in phones and drugs and
Which they were.
tobacco,
Yeah.
inmate, because they know they're protecting themselves. They don't want to be caught on a video camera giving an inmate a package or doing something they shouldn't be doing. So it's super likely that they would tell the inmate, "Hey, that camera's not even working. Don't even worry about it."
But one of the things that would weirded me out was his choice of a bunkie, the guy that Epstein was put in with. The governor of the MCC at that time said the best and most ideal bunkie for Epstein was a corrupt cop who, was a major drug dealer, not at your level, but a major drug dealer,
Yes.
who was eventually convicted of 4 homicides. 4 Mexican guys hadn't paid him the $250,000 that he was supposed to have, and so he strangled one of them with a zip tie. That to me seems like a very unlikely bunkie to put in. But am I missing something in the prison code? Do you want to be put in with a corrupt cop because he's like you? Is there a logic there, or am I missing?
Of course, there's no logic there. I mean, you could be an inmate going in there for wire fraud. Someone slew upside the head, and now you ended up in the shoe, and you're with this convicted murderer who came back for a writ for some kind of court appeal, and now you're sitting in the shoe with him. You're with your life at risk. It's just the way it works. I mean, it's broken. Obviously, it's broken. And their term security level that they figured that Epstein and this corrupt cop were at the same risk. I could understand that. Not looking back at his record, but I guess they figured, they're both at equally in danger,
Except that
to each other in
Except
the
that
cell.
12 days later, something happens to Epstein's neck in the middle of the night at 1:39 a.m. Guards are called, and it is the same type of wound that his quote bunkie had committed and killed somebody with.
At the time, he was in a celled up alone, correct?
No, he's in the cell with this guy. And I can see this. We're not putting the video on for obvious reasons, but your eyes are bugging out with surprise.
Yeah. I was mistaken. I thought the whole time he was celled up alone.
No, the only time he was alone was that night of August the 9th.
Okay,
Because
so that's what I mean.
eventually they put him in with somebody like you who'd been a cooperator, which seems to me the logical thing. He was actually a cooperator for major drug stuff, and he was just going out of the prison because they were transferring him to another holding detention center specifically for cooperators in the New York system.
It's weird. Like I said, if they're overpopulated, they will bump bunk people up. There's 2 beds in the cell, and they will put 2 people together, depending on who it is. For my situation, they weren't going to put no one in my cell. They just weren't going to do it. They weren't going to try it. But for him, like I said, you could have issues with your bunk. It's easy. Commonly, you get irritated, and you literally say, "Hey, listen, if you don't get this guy out of here, we're going to have trouble." That is I know it seems strange, but I guess I can understand why they would put that individual with him in the cell.
Epstein told his lawyers and some of the nurses the next day that that guy had attacked him. And that was where the idea that Epstein should be on a suicide watch came from. The other piece
again,
of information, Juan, that you may need is that it was also revealed that he was paying the total commissary bill of 3 of the other inmates in that SHU wing that he was on. So Epstein is paying all the stuff that they want from the commissary.
So there's 2 things. Early on, right. As soon as you get there, you learn the tricks of how to get a separate key, how to get away from someone. If you say he attacked me, they have to remove him. There's no choice. They're gonna have to remove him. And people do all these little things, and they know how to be alone. I'm not sure if Epstein knew this already.
I doubt it. Was he going to learn that in a private jet?
But that he was probably attacked because people could get. I mean, you're in a small cell, and your emotions are there. You're tired of being there. I was there with my brother for a little bit. I wanted to choke him sometimes, but it just it's hard to live in that kind of confinement with someone else. The commissary thing, it's not that uncommon. I went in there. I was, pretty well off, and some inmates don't have nothing. And they tell you and be like, "Hey man, give me your commissary number. I'm gonna put something in your books so you can go to the store. Buy yourself something in." If he was able to do that, that means he was comfortable. Somebody must have been telling him all these things, like how he could maneuver in there and get what he wanted.
Yeah, there's something on the quote suicide watch where he's staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning with an experienced inmate who's supposed to be watching him, and the inmate is saying, "I'm coaching him on the university of the prison."
Telling him, "This is what you do. This is how you get a lower bunk pass. You got to tell them your back hurts, and they'll give you a lower bottom bunk pass, and you don't have to ever go on the top one. How to get a soft shoe pass, how to circumvent this or circumvent that. When you get to the prison, you could buy somebody's phone minutes. You could buy everything's for sale.
Right.
In other words,
it's all getting back to the thing. It's all a money play. All right, let's return to that question. Anything that I've said so far makes you reconsider your opinion that it was a suicide for Epstein?
I'd like to know, why was he on the suicide list? Why? What was it?
Because of that incident on July 23rd, where at 1:39 a.m. there's a banging on the door. Epstein has quote fallen. There's an injury around his neck. His bunkie says that he was trying to commit suicide. He comes in and for the first 24 hours says my inmate attacked me, and then later says, "Oh no, I can't remember what happened."
So, if someone's attacking you, they're not gonna be banging on the door saying, "Hey, come help them." Why would you do that? You want them to be quiet. So that's a red flag to me. I'm saying, like, what if he was trying to commit suicide? His bunkie's calling for help. And what happens once they put you on that, they put that on your jacket that you're suicidal. Normally, you get a turtle suit. They strip you from everything. You can't have a pillow in your cell, and they'll give you a green, like it looks like a gown, just like made out of like a wall mat, like a floor mat, those soundproof mats, and you're sitting there with this turtle, they call it a turtle suit. Nothing on, no underwear, no nothing, just this turtle suit. Or they'll tie you to a chair. You're literally just strap you to the bed or strap you to the chair so you won't hurt yourself. Nobody wants to go through that. I've been tied down forcefully and it was miserable. I can't imagine like someone wanting to put themselves in that predicament by having that suicide watch on their jacket. So that's, for me, gives another, insight that why he would lie and say, no, it wasn't, he attacked me. Get him away from his cell. At the same time, he's not going to be put in the turtle suit. the special room, I think they call like dry rooms. There's supposed to be 24-hour
surveillance. Yeah.
surveillance on him. The camera never leaves him. They're watching everything he eats. They're taking down, how much he ate from his food tray and all those things. I'm not sure if that's what they did for him at any point, but I think that considering what we're talking about, they should have. That kind of tells me there was some evidence that he already had tried prior.
No. That was the thing. That was the thing that got him into that suicide watch. He was there for 5 days by himself, except for this person watching. And it was always another inmate being paid $1 an hour just to sit there. And at one time, one of them is writing down, this is what we were talking about. We're both being cab drivers in New York. I was explaining him how the system works, blah, blah, blah. So he comes out of there, I think it's July the 30th, and he's found dead the morning of August the 10th. And on that night of August 9th going into 10th, the count for the SHU unit is written down 73 prisoners, parenthesis, +1, between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. And then it changes. So there's, quote, the guards are now claiming, the MCC guards are claiming this was a, quote, ghost count. They don't understand how it looked in their paperwork that there was an extra person on that wing, the SHU unit. But that's the paperwork for the MCC saying there was an extra person on that wing at that night that Epstein is killed. Or commit suicide.
Okay, so first of all, like I said, there's evidence that they had him on suicide watch already. That someone attacked him a couple of days before now, but they had him on suicide watch. So that's, even the person that was talking to him, obviously they're talking to him to try to get his morale up a little bit, get him off that mindset of, I'm going to kill myself. The other thing is that whenever these things happen, if it was because he was a pedophile or someone paid him, like, there's always some sense of a trophy. Look at his name. The whole world knows his name. I think that someone like marketing for death or like doing the deed would really let everyone know he did it.
So if an inmate had killed Epstein 5 years ago, we would have heard about it. Maybe not that week, maybe not that month, but somehow somebody would have talked about it.
He's a trophy. Imagine it's like someone killed a cooperator with that much status.
Right.
What do you call it? Let's just use Whitey Bulger.
Right.
They cut his tongue out. You know who did it. Why? Because they're saying, look, that's what you get for being a cooperator. And that's what we do to them. They weren't afraid of being caught. Once they make that decision, they made the decision. They know what they're doing. For that part, I feel like it's kind of surprising that no one's come out and said, hey, this person told me he killed Epstein.
Right.
That's a get out of jail free card for someone. It's
not clear on the Department of Justice investigation report that they were able to speak to very many prisoners inside the SHU unit, that in their interviews, that very many of them either spoke or agreed to be interviewed. Does that surprise you?
It does surprise me. I mean, that they couldn't get one inmate, two inmates?
They got one inmate, but his testimony contradicted the guard's testimony. So if you read them side by side, you're like, well, somebody's not telling the truth.
I believe that all the time. I mean, you got to understand the way the BOP works. There's nobody watching over them. They write the paperwork they want, and that's what sticks. Who are you going to believe? I've been there. I've written, cop-outs. I've written, forms, grievances against the BOP saying, hey, every time I write you guys, they throw it away. Who's listening?
Right.
They write what they want.
But is there a code among prisoners that you don't talk to investigators?
Of course, you're not supposed to talk to investigators, period. I mean, and I don't see that whole unit would have been full of people who had that street code mentality all the way. You have regular people in there too. They have no association with gangs or anything like that. Them giving a statement over a suicide or possible murder, I don't think would a huge taboo at that moment for someone like Epstein. So that is weird. I believe the idea more that they didn't want to document the other witnesses. Like, who did the investigation?
There was a whole series of really, and I don't want to get into this because it's in the other podcast, of how bad and it was shocking to me. I always had imagined the FBI to be good. They went in 6.5 hours after Epstein was found. They hadn't secured the prison cell. They allowed much of the contents of the cell that Epstein was in just to be destroyed, without testing the linen for other DNA, for any of this kind of stuff. It was truly an appalling thing. Doesn't mean it was corrupt, but it was a
Well, I want
level
to
of
say this.
almost criminal incompetency.
I want to say this, that the FBI went and investigated the murder or the suicide of an inmate within 6 hours. I'm shocked to hear that. When do they do that? Inmates die every day in prison. Every day there's someone dying. I witnessed an inmate was standing for count. An hour later, he's laid out on the floor dead. The prison guards walked by and say, "Oh, he's gone." And I asked him, "How'd you know?" Like, he already sold himself. No big deal. FBI didn't come.
So here's my final scenario to you. One of the inmates on the shoe is told, get rid of Epstein by a major bank or by the Israeli Mossad or somebody of high political, with connections to those kind of agency. And he goes down, kills the guy, walks back. There's no cameras on those particular wings for the 2 weeks previous to August 9th and 10th. There's sometimes a history of the doors being open. Is that possible in your experience of the MCC?
It's possible with help from the guards. You're not just gonna get out the cell and, go down to the Epstein cell, open his door. So I would, if the guard's in on it and the inmates get, he's being paid as a hitman to do it.
That's possible. What's your opinion now on the Epstein death? Still suicide, or is any of the conditions that we've spoken about made you think twice?
I mean, there's lots of, questions in the air, a lot of suspicious activity. But when you're around this stuff, it's always like that. Nothing gets done by the book. I don't want you to ever think that, this is their playbook. This is what they do every day. That never happens. There's no oversight on the way they do their job. No one gets fired. No one gets arrested, unless it's a big sting by one of the, alphabet boys, FBI or DEA or something. And so that's not surprising to me. That he was on the suicide watch, they found him dead. I still feel that they could have found more evidence of a struggle if somebody was really trying to kill him, And I think that what awaited for him was scary, and it would break anyone down, especially a privileged man like him. And I think that would be enough to make him take his own life.
Juan, thank you very much for spending the time with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.